anyone watching in the afternoon. Welcome to Cook My Book. My name is Stella Harris. I'm joined as always by my helpful assistant, Amanda Showers. Say hello, Amanda.
Hello.
We're going to do some butchering today, specifically chicken. Say the library has not yet given me the funds to purchase a cow or a pig in any kind of partially butchered form. I'll have to wait until the future and until I gain those skills, but I can do chickens. So, and poultry. I've done turkeys too. It's largely the same. So that's transferable skill. If you can do a chicken, turkey is just chicken but bigger, and with there's a slight difference in the legs, but largely the same. But we'll give our folks the traditional minute or so to make their way in, and then folks will file in as they're. And as always, if you have any questions, type them in chat. Amanda will be keeping an eye on those things. We're very excited. Those of you at home may have noticed the odd camera configuration we have today. Don't worry, it'll make sense. This is a permutation of camera 2. I don't want to say camera 3 because it's not going to replace camera 2. We're like camera 2.5. We'll go back and forth as necessary. Our wonderful IT department helped us do this to make this more useful to you. So, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. What do you say, Evan?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. As I mentioned, this is Cooking by the Book. I'm Stella Harris. Today, we're going to engage in some butchery of the fun constructive variety. We're going to deal with some chickens. And I'm going to try and impart onto you some techniques to deal with whole poultry in your own home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me pull up my slides. Beautiful. Yes, this is Cooking by the Book, Breaking Down the Bird. Also subtitled Butchery for Beginners. There was a lot of debate as to our title, but so we just went, it's a subtitle for the situation. It'll be fine. But there's our beautiful subject today, reclining, artist-like. But as always, Cooking by the Books is a DVRL culinary program. We're hoping to impart upon you some skills and recipes. Today, more skill than recipe. We tend to hit more of a mixture. This is mostly skills. So this will be a bit of building block. You know, this is a topic that can give folks anxiety, and that topic being cutting up a whole chicken. We're going to do it pre-cooking. It's largely the same process post-cooking. I think it's more useful to see pre-cooking because that's the part that some folks may have less experience with. Maybe you're a bit squicked out by like raw meat. You know, it's a common thing, but we're gonna get through this together. Don't worry, because everyone loves chicken. Slight disclaimer there. Some folks don't love chicken, and that's okay. There are very valid reasons not to love chicken. Valid both moral, environmental, and personal preference reasons not to like chicken. But I will say, lots of people like chicken. So everybody has to. But preparing chicken can be difficult. Raw chicken is one of those foods that is particularly dangerous. Everyone knows about salmonella, the other foodborne illnesses that chicken tends to spread if handled improperly. Some folks don't like handling raw meat. Amanda, do you like touching raw meat?
Like?
It's not your favorite thing. And I know folks who will not touch raw meat. Like cattle will eat meat, but don't like handling raw meat. And if you don't handle it well, it can make that kind of a harrowing experience in terms of both getting raw chicken juice all over your kitchen and having to clean that up and the whole host of issues there. And there are lots of ways to cook chicken. Lots of ways to enjoy chicken without cooking it yourself. You can go buy chicken. Why bother cooking it at home? There's no reason to go out and buy a bucket of fried chicken, some chicken from your favorite place. Why would you cook chicken yourselves? Why cook whole chickens? The short answer is it's delicious and it's easy. But let me give some more into that. While it does require some care, as long as you're practicing some food safety, chicken doesn't need to be more dangerous than say. A lot of the techniques you use to handle chicken are going to be pretty standard stuff. It's just you have to be a bit more rigorous with chicken because it does have that risk of foodborne illness. Also, in terms of the money aspect, buying whole chickens is a pretty good way to eat chicken, as you get both dark and white meat in a whole chicken. You generally get more. They're cheaper pound for pound generally. you're getting some bones in that, but the bones aren't useless. You don't have to throw away the bones, which and I've talked to some folks, that is a common criticism, like, oh, it's not even all chicken. There's bones. Don't worry, we'll talk about bones in a bit. But even going past that, the whole chicken does offer you a wide variety of recipes. You don't need to cook a whole chicken by itself. You can use some of it for this, some of it for that. It's got potential for a number of meats. You can do your classic like chicken soup. You can do curry. You can do tacos. You can do all kinds of stuff with chicken. And if you buy the whole chicken, you've got more breadth of options there, rather than buying a pack of thighs for this, a pack of breasts for that, et cetera, et cetera. But I hear you. You've got this chicken. You're convinced. I've won you over. Hopefully, if not, hang on. You got the chicken. What are you gonna do with it? Well, oops. Getting ahead of myself. Huh? So you've got the chicken. I've got chickens here. What do you do with it? Well, the easiest way, in my opinion, unless you're going to make a roast chicken and just roast the whole thing, which you can, the easiest way is to cut it up. Now, I hear you cutting it up, but there's so much there. What do I do? Well, breaking it down separates out that dark and white meat, as I mentioned, which cook differently, which are better for different things. And that's going to be the best way to tackle a whole chicken if you're not just going to roast it straight. But for a small science detour, what's the difference? Do you know the difference between dark and white meat? Without looking? Not technically?
I know I like dark meat more.
I agree, though it is divisive.
It is.
My mother will not, like, refuses, will only eat white. It is not a constant source, but a common source of discontent in our household. But we love our loved ones despite it. But in a more technical sense, white meat is going to consist of the muscles that are used for brief, high intensity motion, which on a chicken tends to be flight, or those kind of activities. What that means is that most of your white meat is found in the breast of the chicken and the wings. There's also some meat that kind of like mixes in between, but generally that's where a lot of your white meat is going to be. Now, white meat is a bit leaner, and white meat needs a bit more care when cooking, because when cooked for a long time, white meat becomes chalky. It dries out much faster. That's because it is a leaner meat. So when you cook white meat, you generally want a quicker, higher heat cooking method, so that you can get it cooked real fast without losing too much of your juices. Dark meat, however, is going to be, all those muscles that are there for long periods of activity, just standing or walking, which encompasses a lot of your legs, your thighs, some of the lower back portions of the chicken. All that is going to be your dark meat. Dark meat is naturally richer in fat nutrients than white meat. It is slightly more calorically dense. So it's good. So if you're trying to get a real low calorie kind of option, white meat tends to be better, though not significantly. Like both kinds of chicken are pretty good for that kind of thing. But in strict calorie per protein ratio, white meat edges out just a bit. But dark meat is a bit more forgiving in cooking. It is best in stuff like braises or stews or roasts or frying chicken. I think fried chicken is better with dark meat, but again, divisive. But because it has more fat, it's going to dry out much slower. It's going to self-baste a bit, but it does need a bit more time, because if you don't cook it all the way, all the delicious fat doesn't have time to render into delicious collagen, delicious gelatin. It's all nice and amazing, but it needs more time for that. And so when you're cooking a whole chicken, you're balancing priorities, because you need quick high heat on the breasts so they get done, but you also need longer cooking for the legs and thighs, otherwise they won't be as good. So thus is the paradox when you're roasting a chicken. How do you get both? And the answer is, you don't. Well, you kind of do. You can cut it up, or you can change a bit how you roast your chicken. We'll get into that. But that is the basic overview of what dark versus white meat really means and why it matters when you're cooking. So what kind of tools are we going to need? Because you will need some tools. Not as many as you might think, but there are some things that make it easier for you. So what you'll need is a work surface. I have my nice big wooden cutting board, but any kind of cutting board that is easy to clean, Ideally something that you can move to a city type area with easy to disinfect and wipe down. And I think even better if it has something that will catch liquid, because chickens can be a bit liquidy. Say ours have been dried a bit just to help reduce some of that, but there's not going to be some of that liquid. Which, fun fact, the liquid you see in like whole chickens, it's not blood. Blood is a more specific thing. A lot of the like, chicken juice is just like water mixed with either some of the injected liquids or it's like free floating proteins. So if that's part of the thing that freaks you out, don't worry, it's not actually blood. You'll know blood when you see it. I might show you some later. Not mine. You will also need a knife, of course. The type of knife can vary. A chef's knife will work for this. If you have a boning knife, which I'll show you in a bit, boning knives can make it a bit easier. They're a bit thinner. They're a bit more flexible. They can make getting into some of those nooks and crannies a bit easier for you. But again, you can use it with a chef's knife. I've done it with a chef's knife a lot. So it's not impossible to do. You don't need this. A normal chef's knife. Another thing you don't need, but can make it easier, is kitchen shears, specifically spatula, which we'll talk about in a second. But that is just a pair of scissors, ideally heavy duty scissors that will withstand, because you're going to be snipping through chicken bones, not big chicken bones, but bones nonetheless. That will require some oomph to it. So you want to make sure you've got a good hardy pair of kitchen scissors, or of course, just use your knife. That'll also work. But again, I want to present the option. And lastly, and not least, you might want some gloves. As I mentioned, you generally don't want to touch anything after you touch chicken, because chicken, as I mentioned, is a pretty decent vector for things like salmonella and other foodborne illness. And you don't want that on any other parts of you. You don't want to be cutting up your chicken and touch, say, a vegetable you're not going to really hard cook, or really anything else, or maybe the surface on which you might lay some bread or anything like that. You want to make sure you're not cross-contaminating with that chicken juice. And it can also be helpful if you're someone who's like touching raw meat, because you get that extra layer of protection. You don't have to feel as much, you'll still get some of it, but that extra layer of distance can help some folks. Now, what you will typically yield from your whole chicken, you will have, of course, as is shown here, 2 legs, 2 thighs, 2 breasts that you can split into halves for easier cooking. So depending on what you're using it for, that can be more economical, or you might want the whole long breast. There is also the matter of the tenderloin. We might get into that, but suffice to say, the tenderloin is under the umbrella of breast. And then lastly, you will get a carcass, which is all the bone. I know folks don't like that word, carcass, but it is the best word for it because it's all the bones and other cartilagey bits that you'll want to keep to boil for soup. If you like me, which small digression, boil your bones for soup. It makes some of the best soup you'll have. But anyway, we'll talk about soup another day. Now here's our plan. This is a broad overview. If you come for just the quick, what do you do step by step? This is it. You take off the legs. That includes the thighs. Take off the leg and thigh at the chicken's hip. You can split that in between drumstick and thigh. We'll do that. You remove the breasts and wing from the carcass. After you get the wing off, you can separate out the wing from the wing tip. And even if you really want to, you can separate out the wing into its segments. But again, that depends on what you're using it for. Then after that, you can split the breasts, and then ideally you'll split the carcass so it's a bit easier to handle when you're boiling your soup. And then you're done, and you can cook the rest of your chicken, and that's it. Although it's not entirely. There's one other thing. I mentioned spatchcocking. So if you've ever roasted chicken, you know the situation I mentioned earlier in which the white meat and dark meat cooking at different rates can be an issue. The white will be done before the dark, and if you get the dark done, it'll overcook the white, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you fix this? Well, you spatchcock your chicken, which is a fancy way to say you set it upright, and you cut its spine out, and then you flatten it a bit with the palm of your hand. What that does is that makes it the chicken is more level. The legs and thighs are up higher, and so they receive direct heat instead of the indirect heat to get it there on the bottom. What that does is make the thighs cook faster, which means you have to cook the whole chicken less, makes for a more even chicken. Simple. Makes sense? Makes sense. Fun fact, Amanda, do you know what that word spatchcocking means? You shouldn't. It's a 17th century term. And it is a shortening of to dispatch the cock. Yes. So dispatch cock, there you go. It's one of those things that I didn't know, and I looked up, I was like, that's such a weird word. And I wanted to give that little fun fact to all of the viewers, so that you now know what that means, and you can laugh about it on your own time. Not right now, we're doing stuff. Make your joke then. But anyway, we've talked enough. I feel like now is the time to get started. So get out of our presentation. Now, again, folks, I mentioned previously, we have some new technology. Camera 2.5, as you can see, right here. He's going to let us have a better view of what we're going to do, because I thought in a situation like this, it's better to see with your eyes what I'm doing. I can show you more discreetly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And for that, I thought a new view would be appropriate. So I'm going to switch to our new view right now. Hold on, folks. Don't worry. It's going to be scary, but we'll walk you through it. All right. Yeah, look at that. And these are our chickens. Hello. I'm not going to name them because that's kind of morbid. But they're chickens. These are two chickens that we got this morning. I made sure they were thawed. I made sure that they were up to temperature. You don't want them to get warm because, again, food safety stuff, but they're nice and thawed, so easy to work with. One of these is slightly bigger than the other, which happens when you buy chickens. So we're going to use them for different purposes. I'm going to use this big guy for our pieces, because I feel like that'll be easier to see at home. And the small guy, I'm going to put off the side for a bit, and then we're going to use him with the spatchcock. So, of course, as I mentioned, food safety. My gloves on. We'll move this chicken over here. And as they gloved up, he will just go right over here. Something out while we deal with this guy. See that lovely chicken. Next big guy, got the wings, got the legs, and all this other miscellaneous fat and such. Here, oh, it's only you with its neck attached. We can take out for soup. Look at that. We cut that out later. But all right. So as you see, this is our chicken. Nothing too fancy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the wing. This is an easy place to start. Now, this is the boning knife, as I mentioned before. This is going to be your thinner knife. It's slightly flexible, unlike a lot of knives. So it'll help you get into places that might otherwise not. Yeah. So we start with the wing. What we're going to do is we cut here. I'm just going to cut up and around this chicken. Get all that good meat. You don't need to go too deep into the breast. I'm going to disconnect all that good skin. And now I'm going to start to scrape. Scrape and cut. Make sure we get all those tendons disconnected. This guy's coming off. We just scrape a bit and see that nice clean bone. We want to scrape up and slowly hit the joints. And Amanda, I will need you to make sure that this is visible. If things are ever unclear, let me know. And we'll reposition. But again, we're just scraping, getting all this good meat. In there. Beautiful. All right. So we're almost hitting that joint, which is what we're looking for. So the joint right here, what you do, you're just gonna pop it. There you go. And then now that's popped, we pop it out of that socket. We take our knife, just cut through. There you go. That's the wing. And our breast will have a full bone for later. Now, we're just gonna do that again. Again. Make sure it's nice and visible. Start trimming around the edges. And then just make sure we get everything disconnected. Just scrape them. All those tendons disconnected. All that goodness. That out you. All right. Then once we got everything to run off that bone. So I'll the bone, Mandy, what do we do? Cut through. Here, between the bones, and boom, there you go. And that is two wings done. Makes sense? Pretty straightforward. Now, of course, as I am not a professional, there might be some bits and pieces with trim afterwards. But like you, I am not a professional. I am, as I described to Amanda before we started, I'm an uppity home cook. I'm trying to impart something onto you the way I learned, which is sometimes a little messy. But now let's move on to the legs. Now, the legs and thigh are going to be a combo job. We're gonna do both at the same time. What we do, take our chicken on the side again. You want to get your hand right below here where you can feel that bone. Cut some of the skin open. What you'll see, if I get some of the skin open, is that a lot of this, it's already pretty well delineated for you. So, see, all of this is the thigh. The thigh is only connected way down there. So if you can get that off, the whole thing will just come right off. The skin flap is connected to any kind of meat. So let's cut through it. Now I've got a lot more room to work with. So what I'll do is, again, we want to make sure we're getting everything we can, because there's a secret piece of meat on a chicken. Some folks don't know about it. Man, do you know what the chicken's oyster?
I have heard about it.
You've heard about the oyster. The oyster, according to some, is the best part of the chicken. And the oyster is this piece of meat right along the back hip, right here. So you want to make sure you get it. So I got that right up against the carcass. Now I'm going to start trimming along. I've started to hit that joint. So I'm going to flip it back over. Oh, look at that. Bones exposed. Perfect. What I can do, I'm going to trim a bit here. Don't need all of this, but we're going to trim. Right. In the way. So make sure we've got everything, but this one's already mostly popped. We're going to cut right through it. There we go. Now I'll turn it back over, like follow all that good meat. Make sure we get as much as we can. Whole chicken leg and thigh. Would be chicken leg.
You feel the side of the carcass as you're cutting.
You definitely can. If you're hitting something hard, that's going to be bone or hard. Unless you're intentionally cutting through that, which right now you shouldn't be. Until you hit that joint where there'll be a little cartilage to cut through, you don't want to be going too hard, because that'll make it more difficult. You might split the carcass in a weird way. That makes it hard forever. But this is our chicken leg quarter. We have our very, very neat chicken thigh and our chicken drumstick. I'll break those down later, but let's go back and ahead and get our other one. So again, I want to be able to see. So let's cut the skin, get a better view. Opens up like a book. No pun intended. I promise, no pun intended. All right, so again, like good stuff, but we want to make sure we get our oyster. I'm going to go back here, start cutting. I want to follow that carcass. Make sure I'm getting the oyster. Again, follow that backbone chicken. Get as much as we can, and hopefully hit that joint, pop it out like no. Just go through. So see, this here is that joint. It took very little force to pop out at a socket, and then you want to cut through this cartilage here. And that's how you'll get it. So splits very easy. And then we're back to cutting meat. Following the edge there, making sure we're getting everything. And with that nice skin and beautiful, our second chicken leg quarter. Easy as pie. Actually, that's not a good phrase. Pie is very difficult. I don't like it. Maybe I'll do one in the future. We'll overcome that together. But now you're left with our carcass and our breasts. So. And we're going to keep this bone in for later, because it'll make it easier to handle. Now, cutting the breasts off the carcass is relatively easy. Again, it's not a super complex process, but it's one that you want to be careful of, because there is a room for error here. What you want to do, what I recommend doing is make a cut just really toward the middle. Because you want to find where the middle bone is. There it is, see? And that's going to be our bone. It's where it's the bone that separates the two breasts. And then, once you found it, you want to use that as your guide. So that'll, if you follow that, it'll go down the rib cage, all that good stuff. See, there's your rib cage. So you want to cut where there's no rib cage, as much of this meat off here as you can. Again, don't gotta go fast. Slow as you need to. Chicken's not going anywhere. Just come right off the chicken. Yeah, we take small cuts, watching where our hands are. You don't want to cut yourself while cutting a chicken. That breast is almost off there. But oh boy, bone's still kind of attached. Amanda, what do we do?
Big point.
Joint right here.
Oh, really?
There it is. Oh, there you go. And there is that little bit of cartilage, clean it up a bit. Cut through. Make sure you got all you want. And there is your bone in. And this is our cartilage. This is our carcass. There's some cartilage. Slide this down. Now, we just go through and do the same thing on the other side. You've already found where that breastbone is. So you don't got to do any searching. So you're just going to follow as much as possible. Got to cut on at an angle, do that. Make sure you're always following the rib cage. Rib cage will be your guide. Small cuts, again, do not hurry. It's not going anywhere. Small cuts until you get to the point where that wing was connected. You pop it. Cut through. Respect, that's what. So overall, this has been a pretty bloodless process, as butchering chickens tends to be. Again, make sure we get everything we can. Then we get meat and separating it out. With all the skin and such fat. Now. And what we are left with is our whole carcass. Now, you don't need to get all the meat off this. You could do some trimming just to get some choice pieces off here, some on the back that you could get. But at this point, you can do whatever you like with this. I recommend just keeping some of that meat on there just for stock purposes. Because you'll roast these bones and then boil them. You'll get all that good chicken flavor. So relatively straightforward, but we're not fortunate because we still have these big pieces and we want smaller pieces. I promised you guys a bunch of pieces. So what we'll do is we'll start with this. This is our wing. We have the wing tip. Oh, yes, excuse me. Thank you. So this is our wing tip. The wing tip isn't great for eating. So what I tend to do is we just make some cuts. We find that joint is articulated and pop it up both ways we can, just so you can get a nice exposed portion. And cut it right through. I hear you saying, but still, when you don't want to waste that wingtip, no, you don't. When you use it for soup, wingtips also have a lot of collagen and gelatin in them So. We'll use these for stock, like the carcass. And there's a nice fat wing for you. And again, we're gonna wing, gonna pop. Make those cuts until you find it where it's articulated. We expose that. See it there? Cut. It was not hitting bone. Yeah, I was hitting bone there while I was cut. You can tell because it was a very kind of dry sawing sound. You're hitting bone, just readjust. Plenty of cartilage in there to cut through instead. And boom. There's your two wings. Now we'll do the thigh quarters. The fun part about these is this part can show you where to cut. Because there's this nice little fat line right there. That's where, and that's where that joint is. You're gonna start cutting there. Till you find where that joint is exposed. Cut right down there. Expose bone. What do we do when we find the joint, Amanda? We pop. See, that bone exposed right there. Cut down. So we're free. Skin, and there is our drumstick. The favorite of every small child, I think. And our thigh. The favorite of every large child, like myself. All right, Amanda. Am I going too fast? No? Okay. Please, if you at home have any questions, going too fast, let me know. Do this all over again. Sweating top here. So again, move this. Oh, and we've got a perfect guide. How to cut. Start making some cuts. We find that bone. Expose that. Find that nice joint. And then that exposed joint. Cut right through. And then finish cutting down. Skin separated, because we want that skin on some of these pieces. Nice skin on thigh is delicious. There's your drumstick. And there's your thigh. Oh, oops. Sweat in my eye. Our laptop's plugged in, Amanda. It's telling me it's all out of battery. Could you be sure that power strip's on?
Yeah.
Just a moment, folks. Some technical difficulties. Well, some sweat's running in my eye. There it is.
Good?
Yep.
Glad it didn't turn on.
No, I'm also, so as I mentioned, taking off my glove to do anything else. Because again, I don't want to rub chicken juice all over my eyes. That seems like a bad plan. So I'm going to now make sure my brow is thoroughly wiped before I get back to it. Glove back on, having touched nothing else. Except my second one. And there we go, we're back. Back to go hands. And the good news, but really, if you like, you don't need to split these breasts. You can. What I will advocate for is you can cut off this little portion, the other wing bone. That's an apple treat. And then add these. Two breast halves. Bing, bang, boom. One thing I'll show you, mentioned earlier, is I mentioned the tenderloin. This piece of meat here. The polished chicken tender. This is what chicken tenders are, guys. If you've ever wondered, this is what they are. If you wanted to separate that out, take your knife and cut along. It's not connected by much, just some membranes, and there's your chicken. You get one of those on each breast. That's a bonus piece of chicken for you. But if you don't want to bother. So we'll just take this. This nice little wing. You get a bit of the breast, that's all right. It'll roast stuff nice all the same. Or you can use it for stuff. I can organize my stuff here a bit. And wings. Wing tips. Targets, wing tips. These will go in soup. With the drumsticks. With the thighs. And we'll finish. Well, cut it into 2 halves for easier pushing. That chicken. What's the breast? 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 wings, and a bonus meal. You could have 2 if you wanted to cut the other. I did it for demonstration purposes. But that's a lot of portions of meat on one chicken. And it was relatively inexpensive and easy to do. Amanda, what would you say was the most complex part?
You said as long as you find the points, you're pretty much along in the right.
Yeah, it's very true. As long as the chicken shows you where to cut. You shouldn't be breaking bones with this. The only thing you might break is the carcass. What I will sometimes do to make, as I mentioned, make it easier to cut to use soup. I will just split this above the ribs. And this is always very satisfying. You just, yeah, it's a bit gory, folks. I'm sorry.
Cracking you up.
Yep. And then you have 2 pieces that'll more easily fit in a soup pot. If you like, if yours comes with its neck on, you can cut that. Usually chickens will have that attached for you. But all this will fit right in your soup pot. You can make a delicious soup. No matter what you get in a plastic bag. We can bag all this up, and then if you want to our smaller friends. Please. So we're going to, again, bag everything up. Darken on the bottom. If you wanted to give that to your friends, and help someone that doesn't like to cook or anything like that, this is a great thing to do because there's no cutting involved. You just put the chicken and Bob's room. And then what will next spread? Well, yeah, and I'll put these in. But before I do that, I'm going to get the other part of the thing I want to pursue. And that is our friend over here. Is this going to involve dispatch copy? We're going to dispatch this chicken. And that is where we're going to involve our friend, the kitchen shears. So the easiest way to do this, get your chicken, this one, don't be having neck. No, this one is de-necked. So, unfortunately, well, fortunately, we'll have to contend with that too much. Now what we'll do, I'm going to sit it straight up. And I'm going to take my kitchen shears. I found the spine. I'm going to put my kitchen shears on either side of the spine. And this is going to be some back cracking ASMR, I promise. Just clip right through it. And there's one side done. You wanted to, you can stop there. I won't, but we're already seeing what it's doing. I'm going to go on the other side. You can snip through that spine. Really watch your fingers here because the shears don't know your bones from the chicken's bones. And I would feel oh so terrible if any of my lovely viewers were hurt scratching the chicken. And voila, one chicken spine. which will go in a wonderful soup. Now, you're not done, but you're mostly done. So if you'd like, you can lay things out a bit. If there is something else you want to do here, gonna require an act. What you want to do, thank you, which is the wonderful. This is the breast part of the chicken. You want to expose the breastbone. See all along here, we've got a nice piece of cartilage. You want to get some of that away. And there's our breastbone. What we're gonna do is I'll just sweat off my brow. And I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna place like the heel of my hand, just press down. That was a good one. And what that's done, made it so, our chicken will sit like this. And that is a spatchcock chicken. It's gonna lay more flat in your roasting vessel. And as I mentioned, that dark meat is much higher up on the chicken. It's gonna get more direct heat, and this is beautiful for roasting. And that is all spatchcocking chicken is. And again, if I were to do it with the knife, I can sand up and just cut down those ribs until I got the spine out. Do that same thing, make sure the breastbone's exposed and get a heel in my hand, give it a nice pop. And that is a chicken ready to roast. We're gonna season that with some salt and pepper, maybe some other some seasonings, but that's largely ready to go in the oven. And that is how easy it is to prepare these chickens, folks. As I mentioned as we started, cooking whole chickens is incredibly easy and a good skill to have in the kitchen because it can be used for so many different things. And I hope that we've been able to impart some of that onto you today. Because, as is unfortunately the truth, it is that time again because I've shown you all I have to show for you today. We have spatchcocked the chicken. We have gone and cut one up into pieces. And we are unfortunately done. But I hope this has been an informative lesson for you. It's a bit shorter than our normal lessons, but I hope you will forgive me because it is such a valuable skill. I really hope that you all will try some of these techniques for yourself. Assuming you eat chicken, if you don't, come back next month, also different. But if you are a chicken enjoyer, then you can buy a whole chicken today. They're relatively inexpensive and try some of these techniques for yourself. And as I said before, you don't need kitchen shears. You don't need a boning knife. All that does is make things a little bit easier for you. Those cuts that I made can be made with a chef's knife just as easily as anything else. You can cut a spine out with a chef's knife as well. Anything like that will be totally fine. Don't feel like this is something you need special tools for. I happen to have one and I wanted one, so I bought one, but I didn't. So all that being said, let us go to our typical refrain. Let's switch back for just a moment because thank you for joining us. This has been another episode of Cooking by the Book. I hope that you've enjoyed this program and that maybe you've learned something that you can try in your own. Recording for this program, because I know there are some who don't follow things as well live. This will be recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can come back and follow step by step and maybe cook a chicken along with me next time. Maybe play it in your own time. I won't judge. But that'll be out of the DBR YouTube channel in the near future. And we hope that you will join us for our next session. And again, folks, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching at home. All those watching in the future, in the hazy distant future, thank you. And I hope that you will have a wonderful day.